The cantina hummed with the low, discordant music of a dozen different species. The air was thick with the scent of spiced synth protein, engine coolant, and the musky odor of unwashed fur from the traders in the corner. It was a place of transience, a dusty way station on the spiral arm, where stories were traded as often as credits. She moved through the chaos with a silent grace. A lone human female carrying a tray laden with empty glasses and dirty plates. Her uniform, a dull gray jumpsuit, was faded and clean. Her eyes, the color of old earth slate, did not rise to meet the challenging stares of the brun, a hulking species whose cranial ridges flushed with aggression, or the quick, mocking gestures of the slender, silver-skinned Lurin. She was a fixture, as much a part of the cantina as the scuffed floor or the flickering holosign above the bar. They called her the quiet waitress. Few knew if she had another name. Her shift was a study in patience. She wiped tables cleared by rowdy patrons, refilled drinks for beings who never thanked her, and navigated the occasional deliberate shove from a customer who considered humans a lesser breed. The galaxy had forgotten Terra's brief, bright flare of empire. Now, humans were seen as curiosities, physically weak, technologically derivative, lacking any notable psychic resonance or biological weaponry. They were quaint. She was invisible. The cantina's owner, a grizzled Tarkin with kind eyes buried in a leathery face, watched her work. He had found her years ago, silent and seeking work, and had given her a job and the small storage room upstairs to call her own. He knew she paid her rent with small, beautifully carved wooden figures that appeared on his desk, but he never saw her carve them. Tonight, the crowd was particularly boisterous. A group of star mappers, celebrating a lucrative contract, dominated the center of the room. Their leader, a brund with a deep scar across his snout, slammed his massive fist on the table. Music. This place needs proper music, not this recycled noise. He gestured dismissively at the overhead speakers. His companion, a Lurin, with a voice like scraping crystal, chimed in. Yes, something with spirit. Something with artifice. Surely this establishment has some form of entertainment. The Tarkin owner sighed, wiping a glass. We have a piano, old, acoustic. It came with the place. No one has played it in cycles. The brund let out a booming laugh. A piano. A human instrument. How fitting for this backwater. Bring it out. Let us see this relic. With a shrug, the owner nodded to two of his servers. They moved to a shrouded corner and pulled off a dusty cover. Revealed was an object of deep, polished wood, its surface scratched, but still holding a rich luster. It was a grand piano, an ancient thing, its keys yellowed with age. A murmur, part curiosity, part derision, rippled through the cantina. The star mappers examined it as if it were an archaeological find. The brund pressed a key. The note, slightly flat but still pure, echoed in the space. He pressed several at once, creating a discordant crash. See? A primitive noise box. I told you. Human things have no subtlety. The quiet waitress had stopped her cleaning. She stood by the service bar, a damp cloth in her hands, her gaze fixed on the instrument. Her expression was unreadable, but her knuckles were white on the cloth. The Lurin, enjoying the spectacle, called out. Perhaps the quiet one knows how to make it sing. Human, come. Show us the glory of your people's culture. The remark was met with chuckles. The idea was absurd. The owner shook his head. Leave her be. She serves drinks, that is all. But she was already moving. She placed the cloth neatly on the bar and began to walk, not towards the mocking star mappers, but towards the piano. The crowd parted for her, their jeers dying in their throats, replaced by a puzzled silence. She did not look at them. Her slate-colored eyes were only for the instrument. She reached the bench. Her faded gray jumpsuit, a stark contrast against the dark, elegant wood. For a long moment, she simply stood, her fingers hovering just above the closed fallboard. Then, with a reverence no one in the room had ever witnessed from her, she opened it, revealing the alternating pattern of ivory and ebony keys. She sat, her posture straight but not stiff, and adjusted the bench with a quiet finality. The Brun snorted, ready to make another joke, but the sound died. She had placed her hands on the keys. The first chord was not loud, but it held a weight that silenced the room completely. It was a complex, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate in the chest. It was not a single note, but a world of feeling. Then her hands began to move. What flowed from the instrument was not a simple tune. It was a torrent. It was a story told in sound, a narrative of soaring heights and profound depths. Her left hand laid down a foundation of deep, rolling bass that thrummed through the floor plates, a powerful, inexorable current. Her right hand danced above it, a cascade of high, crystalline notes that sparkled like starlight on solar sails. The melody wove between them, now aching with a loneliness that touched even the emotionless Lurin, now burning with a fierce, triumphant joy that made the Brun's hearts pound in their thick chests. God, it was a composition of impossible complexity and profound emotion. It spoke of a homeworld of blue skies and deep oceans, of cities that once touched the clouds, and a spirit that yearned always for the horizon. It was a memory of a greatness not forgotten, but carried quietly within. The music swelled, a symphony conjured by 10 fingers on 88 keys, filling the cantina not with noise, but with a tangible, breathtaking presence. The star mapper stood frozen. The Brun's aggressive posture had melted into one of stunned awe, his small eyes wide. The Lurin's mocking smile was gone, replaced by an expression of pure, analytical wonder. They heard mathematics in the patterns, a complexity that rivaled their own quantum harmonies. The other patrons, a mix of species from across the sector, were equally transfixed. A Zealand trader, whose culture communicated through scent, found her olfactory glands producing involuntary signals of profound respect. A taciturn mining bot from the asteroid belts had stopped its internal processors, all sensory input rooted to audio reception. She played on, lost in the world her hands were creating. The music transitioned, becoming softer, more intimate. It was the sound of a single voice in a vast darkness, a whisper of enduring hope. Then it built again, not in anger, but in a gathering certainty, a crescendo of resilience that climbed and climbed until it seemed the very walls of the cantina could not contain it. And then, with a final resolving chord that hung in the air like a physical object, it was over. Her hands lifted from the keys and settled gently in her lap. The silence that followed was absolute, a void left by the departure of something monumental. It stretched for 5 seconds, 10. Then the Brun's star mapper did something unprecedented. He brought his massive 3-fingered hands together in a slow, thunderous clap. It was joined by another and another until the cantina erupted in a roar of applause. It was not the polite clapping of entertainment, but the raw, fervent acknowledgment of a witnessed marvel. The Lyran was nodding, a gesture of supreme respect in his culture. The owner had tears tracing through the leathery folds of his face. She stood from the bench, her expression returning to its usual quiet neutrality, as if she had simply completed another task. She closed the fallboard over the keys with the same gentle reverence and turned to walk back towards the service bar. The crowd did not try to stop her with questions or cheers. They simply made a wider path for her, their eyes now seeing not a quiet waitress, but the person who had been there all along. The Brun leader, his voice uncharacteristically soft, murmured to his crew, "We have mapped dying stars and nebulae. We thought we understood scale. We did not." She picked up her damp cloth from the bar and resumed wiping a table. The cacophony of the cantina slowly returned, but it was different now. The laughter was less sharp, the conversations more subdued, punctuated with glances towards the gray-clad figure, quietly clearing glasses. The owner approached her later, as she was finishing her shift. He placed a large, steaming mug of Terran tea, a precious commodity, on the table she was cleaning. "That," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Where did that come from?" She looked at the tea, then at the piano in the corner. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. It was the first expression anyone had ever seen on her face. It was not blank patience. "Home?" she said, her voice quiet but clear, like one of the high notes from the piano. "It was always there. I was just waiting for a quiet moment to let it out." She took her tea and walked towards the stairs to her small room, leaving the cantina and its stunned patrons behind. The universe had dismissed humanity as a quiet, unimpressive species. But that night, in a dusty cantina on the edge of everything, they had learned a new truth. Some songs are too vast to be played loudly. Some strength is too deep to be shown casually. And sometimes, the most impressive thing in the galaxy is not a warship or a plasma cannon, but the quiet waitress who remembers how to sing the songs of Earth.